Hi, my name is Jack. This time with another build for the last Epoch 1.2 patch, Tombs of the Ares. So, this time I have a ForgeGuard Sentinel using Javelin. Let me explain to you how this build works. We'll be using Javelin, and we will go over here and we use Divine Throws to convert everything to Lightning. We will also use Purified Lightning for Electrified Chance, and then Divine Fury. The way that this works, we will no longer pierce enemies with the javelin, but rather when the javelin hits an enemy, it will create additional piercing lightning spears behind that enemy that got hit, and which go towards the closest enemy. So this works like if you played Part of Exile Fork support, or if you're a bit older and you played Diablo 2, you might remember this from the Java Zone, who this would pretty much works like Lightning Fury. That's pretty much the same idea. We're going down here, Beast Ender, and we were going for crit build, damage, travel node, damage, and over here, this one is really important. Physical res shred chance per dex, which will get converted to lightning res shred for divine throws. Per 3% per dex is a lot, and we'll get some frailty, but it's not that important. But we have like a lot of decks, like we will pretty much hit 159% lightning shred chance from these three nodes. Then we were using Smite, which will be auto casting using some items and idols. We will go over here, travel over here, and get Order of Lagon. We were not using Charged Hand because we get Electrify from Javelin instead. We will use Unbalanced Scales for the lightning bolts at 3 nearby enemies for some extra clear. And then these lightning bolts created by Smite hit additional enemies. So 6 enemies total, right? Down here, we will take the sacrifice node, health sacrifice for damage, and then use atonement to reduce the health sacrificed. We'll be taking lunge. Lunge is really nice here. Travel over here. These nodes aren't that important, but this one is we'll be using a spear, right? Because we have javelin. So this changes the circle of lunge to an extended like rectangle. And travel over here and use Pilum Assault, which will give us a javelin after lunging with spear, which will then cast Smite as well. So really nice. Call the Weak is of course really nice, 50% maximum kill threshold. Anything that's 50% or lower will immediately die when getting hit by lunge. And we get a free Smite cast from lunge at up to 3 nearby targets. We'll go to the left, get some support, health gain. So we regain health on missing health and lunging, extra block chance while lunging, and is always very important. I think the best notes ever. Invulnerability while traversing or invulnerability while lunging in this case. Extremely good. We have ForgeGuard, we'll be using Ring of Shields. Ring of Shields gives us a lot of health. Basically, the shields that surround you have a base health, and they draw enemy aggro and projectiles, right? And then the stats that we have on our shield is added to Ring of Shields. Additional shields, then we go over here and get a heal pulse, and this is not that important, this one is important. Phalanx, 50% armor on basically getting this heal pulse for 4 seconds, and 40% block effectiveness on getting the heal pulse. Really nice. We'll travel over here as well. Down here, we will have 15% additional block chance and 150 block effectiveness if you have cast Ring of Shields recently in the last 4 seconds. So that is very nice as well. We'll be doubling a bit in the paladin tree and get us Symbols of Hope. These have gotten a big change. You don't need to activate them anymore to get the like passive things. They will always be active from now on. And when you activate Symbols of Hope, you gain ward per symbol and 5% less damage per symbol. We have 4 symbols, so we would be getting 40% less damage. Nice kind of oh shit button, right? So we'll be going over here, we'll be granting us damage, increase mana regen, and most importantly, increase critical strike chance per symbol, 20% per symbol. Then we will go on the right and get the cooldown recovery for Symbols of Hope and get us additional symbols at maximum 4, and get Meditation double half region from symbols. So nice amount of passive bonuses that we get from Symbols of Hope. And also pretty much a skill. Let's go over the passive tree. Starting with the base, not much we need here, mostly for getting to Smite and then some extra. The extra resistance here is, I think, the best, so we have to invest less into gear and idols. Then I go for Relentless, 5 points for the increased stun immunity duration, and the extra increased damage and stun avoidance is really nice. Armor Clad, I would max these hours damage taken from Levi and is minus 10%, that is 10% less damage. One travel node and fearless, and stalwart block effectiveness, and 3% extra block chance. Go over here, and we gain 50 health on block, and we have an extremely high block chance, so that's really nice. Weapon Master, we do bleed, but we do not do bleed, but we do critical strike. So we get on 5 nodes, we get 5% base critical strike chance. One travel node in here. This one's not that important. This one is increased critical strike chance with 2-handed weapons. We're using a 2-handed spear, so that is really nice. Steel Aegis, armor, block effectiveness, extra block chance, and then over here we gain additional armor. For each hit we have blocked recently, we have a maximum of 10 stacks, 75 armor on block, so at 10 stacks 750 armor, which then gets increased by increased armor. We'd be taking 5 nodes into crushing blows, more damage per 1 mana cast for throwing or melee attacks, and mana region, mostly as a travel node. And this tree right here is why I took ForgeGuard over Paladin. We get this Iron Reflexes, dodge rating turns into armor. We get 10 dexterity. We scale with dexterity actually really nicely, as shown on the skill tree. And Javelin itself scales with dexterity as well. So then we go over here, increase throwing, attack critical strike chance, 4 points in it, and over here attack critical strike multiplier with throwing crit chance per 5 dexterity base crit chance, right? So this one's really nicely. We'll be gaining a lot of base crit chance like this, being able to hit 100% crit chance, that's right. And this is the most important node in the ForgeGuard tree, and why I can equip a shield together with a 2-handed spear. Forge Master Smite, this one's new. Equip shield and 2-handed axe, mace, sword, or spear. But for that we will do 20% less damage, and we have 10% less attack and cast speed. And haste instead grants 10% additional block chance, which is actually really nice. But I'd say the damage mitigation that you gain from having a shield heavily outweighs the negatives on this node, so I'm just taking it, right? I say this node is really, really good. And over here we will go for another shield tree, armor with a shield, less damage taken, and then this bonus is doubled with 50% or higher block chance, which we do have. So 10% less damage taking, an additional 3% block chance. And Shield Crafter modifies or Ring of Shields. You have the chance to cast Ring of Shields when you block a hit. 50% chance to cast Shield on block, right? So that way we will permanently gain Ring of Shields by just blocking hits, and we will gain extra block effectiveness, and the minion health and minion armor applies to the shields or Ring of Shields. They count as a minion basically. This effect can then trigger 3 times every 6 seconds. That way we gain the extra 50% block chance from Ring of Shields pretty much all the time by just blocking inherently. The Paladin tree, pretty much we want to get Symbols of Hope, and then back here is Piety, which is really nice. Lightning Pen, we will travel with this node, which gives us an increased lightning damage and Lightning Pen. And then this one, 5 points in hit, endurance threshold per 2% uncapped elemental resistance, which is really nice. And then some elemental res and attunement. Attunement is not important, the elemental resistance is really nice. Honor, more stun avoidance, block effectiveness, and block chance once again. And we'll be using Blinding Light as well to get more electrify chance, and then blind and electrified duration is also really nice. So we can travel towards this node. And that's pretty much the passive skill tree. Let me show off the equipment. This is the most important item. It's a bit tough to get, but it's possible. So the way to get this is you need to kill champions, and you need to get a two-handed spear with the sealed affix storm champion, which is the sealed affix. You can see here, the most important thing here is the chance to cast smite on hit with throwing attacks. That is why we get this sealed affix from the champion. This is pretty much the only way to get this sealed affix. You can't get it anywhere else. So what you do is you need to drop a two-handed spear with storm champion sealed affix, and then hope it has like a T6, T7, and then you can use Rune of Redemption, one of the new runes, to get, so no matter what the exalted is, if it's like something that you don't need like fire physical damage or something, you use Rune of Redemption until you hit lightning, right? And then you craft the rest of the lightning modifiers on it as much as possible. Lightning melee damage is of course the best, and the reason for that is because something that Javelin says. We go over here. If you have a spear equipped and added melee damage from the spear applies to Javelin as added throwing damage at 50% of its normal value, added melee damage from other sources has no effect. Added throwing damage applies at 250% effectiveness. So that way, this melee damage on the implicit and the modifier gets added as base damage for us at 50%. And the rest of the modifiers pretty self-explanatory. Between Lightning Pen and chance to apply shock on hit, I'd say the shock on hit is actually better because of the lightning resistance shred that we get from a Javelin tree as well. That is pretty much the spear. You either go for the side lands base or obsidian lands. The other ones are really not that good, honestly. There is no lightning base lands either way. Then the shield, we go for a down shield for the big block effectiveness, 30% chance to block. You can also go for the iron glass shield, which has 5% extra block if you've got some bad rolls somewhere else or something. Nonetheless, T7 block chance, block effectiveness, health, increased armor. That's pretty much all you need. Champion Regala for the armor mitigation applies to damage over time. Again, we are scaling with dexterity, and Javelin also scales with dexterity, so big dexterity, right? It also gives us lightning resistant shred, so we will try to get as much dexterity as possible. Vitality, health, big health increase, we have 3100 health. Leonine Great Helm, reduce bonus damage taken from critical strikes. Getting this one to 100% is really important. That is a big EHP pool giver. It also has lightning throwing damage with Javelin. Get that to T7 and a dex roll, and then just health and armor. Bone Amulet for the implicit resistances, crit and crit modifier, and then just fixed resistances, pretty straightforward. These core rings, if you haven't hit 100% crit throwing chance, or you're missing some resistances, you can go for the other bases like copper ring, gold ring. Down here you can go for iron ring, ruby ring, right? But if you don't need any of that, the core ring is the best base for some extra health and health regen, which is then increased by Symbol of Hope. And then that increased crit, dex, and hit fixed resistances. If you're finished with resistances, go for block chance and health instead. Increased throwing attack speed is also really nice here. If you hit 100% increased crit, just go for increased lightning damage instead, right? Body Silk Sash, fixed resistances for the implicits, and then throwing damage is the best modifier on the prefixes, and lightning damage, and then just health or fixed resistances. These Eternal Gloves, let me explain to you how to craft these. You craft these with the new rune that shuffles your tiers among your affixes. So let's say you got this item with the experimental, but it's T5 instead of right? And then you have an exalted modifier, which is one of these other ones like blockchain's health or throwing damage, which is T7. And then you use the new rune, which shuffles the T7 to one of the other affixes, right? So that way, you do that until you hit the T7 armor mitigation applies damage over time, which gives us a good amount of EHP against damage over time. Together with the Eternal Gauntlets, which additionally gives armor mitigation applies damage over time. Then Citadel boots for the reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. Here I would definitely take the haste. You can also take experimental frenzy effect. Both are really good. And remember, haste doesn't give movement speed in this case because of Forge Master's Might. This gives us 10% chance to block, which I think is really good. It gives us about 3000 EHP, so I'd say absolutely worth it. Other than that, dexterity, health, armor as usual. Solarium banner for the block chance, and the health gain on block is nice as well. Crit, most importantly, level of Javelin, so we can fit all of the nodes, right? Mostly these four over here, or maybe you will go for these ones later and get the lightning red shirt first, which is smarter. That's pretty much the equipment, right? The idols. So we get chance to smite on hit with throwing attacks on the lands, and then we get these adorned Rye idols which have on its prefix chance to cast smite on hit with throwing attacks. These 2x2s are really important. So you roll, let's say you roll 50% on the sealed affix here. Then you roll 15, 15, 20, and that puts you at 100%. If you have a really bad roll, let's say you don't have T5, you have like T3 or T4 instead of these sealed affix, you need another 2x2, remove these, both of these idols, and put another 2x2 here. The suffix on these 2x2s, I think the best one is shred armor on throwing attack hits. Other than that, you could also go for health. There's like block effectiveness is nice as well. The rest is really not that important. And as you've probably seen, these are the new enchanted modifiers we'll be using on every one of these idols. We'll be going for the same enchant, which is critical strike chance, critical strike multiplier, increased armor, and armor mitigation applies to damage over time. That's the only thing we care about. So that is pretty straightforward. These 1x3s, we go for throwing critical strike multiplier, health, and this one has fire resistance to fix resistances, and the small idols are just armor and resistances to fix resistances. And that's the idols. Going over the blessings, the timeline of the Black Sun will be going for critical strike multiplier, of course. We have hit 100%, over 100% throwing critical strike chance anyway. Timeline Reign of Dragons, our resistance is by far the best one, so we don't have to put as much on our gear. Armor for Spirits of Fire timeline and Age of Winter, we of course get the block chance, by far the best one, since we heavily invested in block anyway. And then ending the storm, we're lightning build, so shred lightning resistance is by far the best one we can get here. You can also technically go for shock duration or over here lightning damage or chance to apply shock. But I think the shredding lightning resistance together with the one that we get from the tree is by far the best one. We hit 159% lightning shred over here with the 53 dexterity we have. Together with this, if you get a really good roll, like 41%, you hit 200% lightning res shred chance. So that's amazing in every way. Yeah, this build pretty straightforward, good amount of EHP pool, as you probably already saw. We have like 20,000 EHP for all of the elements and necrotic void poison, 42k for physical, good amount of EHP with one shots and dot as well. We have, as I've said many times before, 100% critical strike chance on the throw, 400% throwing critical strike multiplier. Sadly, the Last Epoch tool doesn't calculate the base damage correctly. We don't have calculations for how much damage we were doing, but with the crit, or like all of the electrify, the shock, and the shred, the armor shred, together with the lightning shred that we have, this build will absolutely do a good amount of damage, like for sure, right? The attack speed is also not being calculated correctly. Yeah, we have like almost 80% armor mitigation, 92% block chance, which puts us at 55% block mitigation with 2,500 block effectiveness. Everything is over pretty much. So you have some wiggle room if you have any bad rolls, right? Stun avoidance 750, and then 1% reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. And that is pretty much the build. We gain a bunch of health regen and health from block as well. That is the build. Pretty much designed this after a Javelin from Diablo 2 with Paladin in mind, or better said, in this case, ForgeGuard. I'd love to be a Paladin, but the thing is, ForgeGuard just has these like 4 nodes, which are simply too good. If you look at the Paladin tree in the end, there's really nothing here that is really that good, and it doesn't have any good throwing damage nodes either. So it's kind of rough. Like Judgmental Storm is kind of not bad at all, but like these nodes, specifically Forge Master's Guide, just really enable this build, and that's why this is a ForgeGuard. Yeah, if you like, leave a like, leave a subscribe. See you around.